Titus Welliver here. Our radio audience just has just rejoined. You just saw a clip of Bosch's Legacy, the final episodes of the third and final season of this iteration of Bosch on Prime Video. And you can watch that, obviously, right here on Roku when it hits. 10 years, man. That is unbelievable. If I told you that at the very beginning, you'd have told me what? 10 years.
I think we Connolly asked me on the first day of shooting the pilot, how long do you see yourself playing this character? And I said, I'll play him as long as they'll have me. But I think we always sort of thought the sweet spot or the hopeful spot would be maybe 3, possibly 4 seasons would be great. So to run for 10 seasons has been a gift.
Why did you say that at the very beginning? You just knew at the time, I'll play this as long as they'll have me? I mean, why would you say that?
Yeah, I connected with the character from the moment that I finished reading the pilot script. There was, and I'd only read one of the novels, and it had been many, many years before, so it wasn't like I had a depth of knowledge. But it came off, Michael Connolly and Eric Overmyer had written the pilot script together. And it was one of those scripts where I read it and I went, I desperately want to play this, but I've been kicking around long enough to know that, it's probably they're going to ask every star name to come to the table. And I thought I had a very, very small chance of getting that role. So when I got it, I was overjoyed, to say the least. But there's just something about a character like that who's kind of, world weary and has so much internalized trauma, and he's not an emotionally demonstrative guy. That's just really, really tasty stuff to play as an actor.
And then when this started, though, I mean, I think people don't put 2 and 2 together here. I mean, Amazon wasn't really doing television at all. You were the first. Now, by the way, now they got Thursday Night Football games, and Bezos is launching his, fiance into space. You know what I mean? So. Do you have? But that's my long-winded way of saying, do you at least have Prime now? Do you get this stuff for free?
Well, I'm looking still to go to space, so I guess that's what I would propose to Jeff,
yes,
just to get a ride on that. But no, we started. We were kind of one of the tentpole shows,
right?
And it was unknown territory, and
people are like, why is Amazon doing television? Right?
Yeah,
I mean, when this first started, I'm not mistaken.
No, you're
right?
not mistaken at all. And then they went on and started to make films, and and it just exploded from there. And you have so many great shows. You've got Jack Ryan, you've got Reacher. I mean, just to name a few.
Yeah.
There's been so many shows now that have exploded from it. So it was a great place to be on the ground floor. And part of that was that, unlike a lot of the network experiences, and this is not to can them, but there was a kind of trust that they handed off to us as creative people. They went, you know what you're doing, and so we're going to let you do your thing. And, when you've got Michael Connolly and Eric Overmyer and Henrik Bastin and Peter Jan Brugge, writing and producing a show, smart choice. It wasn't broke and there was no need to fix it. And so they kind of really allowed us to tell this story and tell it in a time and fashion that normally would not be allowed, right? Too slow for network TV. You got to get everything done before the commercial break.
What was it like on the final day? Your final shot? You shot out. What was that?
You mean for this?
When you were done with it, when you were done with this. That
was rough.
This season.
That was rough. I mean, I think people sort of held it together, but it felt like it was also just another day. We kind of went, well, that's a wrap on that season, and everyone thought, well, I'll see you at the wrap party, and because there was no at that point. We didn't realize that we weren't going to continue, and we introduced the character Renee Ballard, masterfully played by Maggie Q, which they will spin off.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Own thing.
Okay, this is awesome, man. Titus Welliver here on the Rich Eisen Show. One last mention here at the moment. Third and final season of Bosch Legacy airing Thursday this week on Prime Video. So many different things I want to ask you about. I mean, you were here 3 years ago, but Did you have to read the scripts of Lost over and over again to understand them?
You know what I did? I made a conscious choice because of the whole NDA and the secrecy surrounding that, because so many people, that was kind of the beginning of the spoiler world.
Damn straight.
And so I felt like because there was so much responsibility that I didn't want that. So what I would do is I'd say, don't send me the scripts. Everything was, well, it was watermarked with your name. So I would have...
What do you mean? What are you talking about?
Every single page said Titus Welliver on the script, right? And it came in a packet, like it had fentanyl or something in it, and so
allegedly,
I didn't. Yes, I didn't want that responsibility, so I would have them send one of the production assistants over to my hotel. Bring me the packet, which had a Mylar seal and this and that, and you know, like one of those wax stamps from the Marquis de Sade on it, and I would break it open and I'd say to the guy, you know, have a Coke in the lobby or something, give me 45 minutes, and I would learn the lines and then hand it back because I was terrified. I mean, all it took was, and because the show was so popular, everyone in Oahu and every hotel, they knew where we were staying and everything. I thought, I don't want to get caught up in that, so I just won't do it. So I sort of didn't fly by the seat of my pants. I knew what was going on.
Yes.
But I just didn't want to have the physical possession of that script. And I was telling someone recently, because it's come back on Netflix and has now had this sort of, you know, revisitation and finding a whole new fan base.
Yes.
That when Mark Pellegrino and I, we were already friends, if we were in a restaurant together or walking down the street, it was like being in the Beatles for 5 minutes. We would literally, people would come running up to us on the street. And neither one of us were accustomed to that at all. So thank God for P.F. Chang's and their happy hour, right? We just sort of sequester ourselves. And but it was a bit of a mind blower.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of the first season of Lost was one of the greatest seasons of any television show I have ever seen.
100% agree.
It was perfect, letter perfect, and just how the flash forwards and flashbacks and trying to just the breadcrumbs that would be left and everything was as must-see television as I can recall.
Yeah.
So I totally believe that people are just you know, coming up to you and saying what they're saying, but it was just so difficult to follow. I'm just wondering what it's like to actually have acted in it, which is why I, you know, led with that question.
Well, I mean, when I got the call from Elizabeth Sarnoff, who I'd done 2 other shows with her and David Milch, one was Big Apple, and she worked also on Deadwood, and she called me up and said, look, I've got, you know, do you know the show Lost? And I went, no, I live under a rock. I said, yes, I love the show.
That's right.
I'm a huge fan of the show. And she said, well, I'm one of the EPs and writers on the show, and I've got something for you on the show, but I can't really tell you what it is. And because I loved her and trusted her, I said, say no more, when and where. And then that kind of unfolded. But even in that first scene that I did where the man in black shows up on the beach with Jacob, I didn't know what the hell was going on. I really didn't have any sense of who my character was, where he came from, and it wasn't revealed until the season after that. And I remember being in the jungle with Nestor Carbonell, and he had this line where he says something like, the black smoke took my wife. And my character said, no. And he said, how do you know this? And I said, I am the black smoke. And there was this hush throughout the entire crew. And Nestor looked at me, and I kind of thought, what's everybody reacting? So he said, dude, do you realize what you just said? That's like saying, no, Luke, I am your father. And I went, oh, wow. And then it all connected. I'm the smoke monster.
Yeah.
I've been this computer-generated effect that's manifested over all these other seasons. And now here I am, and Locke and I are connected. And that's when it really, really hit me. And I'm very, very proud and so privileged to have participated in that show because it was so smart. And a great group of people. I mean, Allison Janney played my mom. You know, I mean, not a bad group. Although I never got to, aside from Nestor, I never got to interact with the other characters who were the series regulars.
Yeah, man. And you know, you had me at Hello at Deadwood. I mean, you've been on before, you know, and I have the hat. We have this hat here. We can't zoom in on it because it's every single. You could see the scribbles on it.
Yeah.
But we've had every single person who's ever appeared on Deadwood sign this hat when they come into the studio with their favorite curse word.
And we all know what that.
I know, and we can't show you the top.
That.
The last one who was signed it was Jared McCready, who was here, and he signed the very top of the hat with the worst of the worst possible polysyllabic curse that could be.
Yeah. No, he's.
And now, but you spend as much. You spend tons of time with him, obviously.
Our characters, because I worked for Swearingen, and he was trying to kind of undermine Swearingen, and was trying to sort of pull me into the fold, and Gerald, and I had loved his work over the years, and he's a really interesting guy, and he was a lot of fun to work with.
Yeah.
And for a guy who's really affable and sweet, I mean, he was really formidable and deeply dark on that show.
Oh my God! Played George Hurst, and then obviously Ian McShane was no ray of sunshine himself.
No. But that was working with McShane was a masterclass, right? I felt like I was at the RSC or at Juilliard, every single day, just getting to sit in a room with him and sometimes not even speaking, but just to watch him do his thing was an incredible gift.
We had Timothy Oliphant on, and he told a story about how David Milch, and obviously the scripts were gospel, right, with him, that they changed that one day because a child actor the agent was pulling a power play.
Yeah.
And he just knocked on his Milch knocked on his door of his trailer and goes, well, he goes, we're going to kill the kid.
Yeah.
Because the agent was pulling a power play for the kid, and that's how an entire season's worth of plot lines flipped on its head.
Yeah.
You were there that day, I imagine.
Oh, yeah. I'll tell you an interesting story apropos of that.
Sure.
Years ago, I was doing a series, Stephen Bochco, David Milch series, Brooklyn South.
Sure.
And it was an ensemble show, but there were two actors.
By the way. Great show.
I won't reveal their names.
Okay.
But they felt like they were kind of the standouts of this ensemble show. And there was a lot of kind of bad talking that was going on. And it got back to Milch and Bochco. Mm-hmm. So one day we're in between setups, and the cast, we're all sitting together, and this is back when everybody smoked. So we're sitting outside, we're all having cigarettes, and Bochco and Milch come out. Hi, how's everybody doing? Great, great, great. And Milch, apropos of nothing, says, and this is how David Milch speaks. He says, the thing about a copper show is you got some type disgruntled character within your cast. And, the next episode, they're the first cop through the door, and they forgot their vest in the trunk of the patrol car. and he says, well, everybody have a great day. And he walks away. And so we all knew who the culprits were, but they both turned crimson and got up out of their chairs and went to their trailers. So that's how you operate in the world of David Milch. And it's not like he's being punitive, but that's not the kind of game that you play with a guy like David. Oh, really? So now you're saying that you want this character to be paid, it's favored nations, basically everybody's getting a peanut butter sandwich and $10, but you want X. So that kid just ran into the thoroughfare, and there was a stampede of bulls running down the center of Deadwood.
These are the people who.
I just got you on. Oh, wow.
That's what happened. All of a sudden, bulls are right down the thoroughfare, man.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. You got to dive into the Gem Saloon. But these are the guys who once upon a time told David Caruso on NYPD Blue, go to CSI Miami if you want, pretty much, or wind up there.
Well, yeah.
These are the guys.
You get put into jail, right? You can't. Bochco and Milch they are responsible for my career in television.
You would say that?
100%. I was playing a lot of the same kind of roles, and it wasn't until I did NYPD Blue, in which I played a trauma surgeon in the ER, of which I thought, when my manager called me, I said, they're never going to cast me in that role. It's not going to happen because of the other work that I do. And I went in and I read for Mark Tinker and David Milch and Bochco, and I think I combed my hair and wore a button-down shirt and wore my reading glasses because I thought, well, this will take away from, because I thought I was going in to read for a cop initially.
Mm-hmm.
Do the reading. It went well, and they all said, great, great, great. And David Milch on the spot said, would you like to play this character? And I said, yes, very much. And he said, well, the part is yours. And I said, really? And he said, why would I say that lest it wasn't true? I went, okay, so we'll see you on set. And just as I was leaving, I had my hand on the doorknob. David shouted out, don't forget to call your mom and dad. So that speaks to the fabric of his character. I then went on, once you got into the Bochco Milch Mafia,
that was it. You're in.
That was it. And it was a family. And, I can't think of anyone. And it wasn't until I ended up, in the land of Bosch, working with Eric Overmyer, who had also been a writer on Hill Street Blues. And
the original.
Had great, crazy Milch stories. Everybody does. But yeah, very much so. I owe my career because then it turned the tide. Suddenly I wasn't relegated to just playing tough guy characters all the time. I got to be dads and lawyers and polysyllabic characters, not just guys that talk like Hans Hall.
Right. Do you get a good story from the town? Anything from that movie? Anything from your time on that movie?
That whole experience was great. First of all, it was a remarkable cast that they had put together, and it was my second film with Ben because I had done Gone Baby Gone, and
then you had Argo after that too,
and then Argo, and then did a little thing in Live by Night. But I was shooting Bosch, so my availability was very limited. So I went in, and that character kind of ended up in a montage sequence. But Ben, pound for pound, is probably one of the great directors of all time. I mean, if when I saw the first cut of Gone Baby Gone, I was astounded by what I saw. I knew he was a gifted writer and a director when I was doing the film. Mm-hmm. And John Toll was the cinematographer, and of course that cast, right? You've got Morgan Freeman and Ed Harris and Amy Madigan and Michelle Monaghan, Casey Affleck, John Ashton, if I'm missing anybody. But the wildest thing was the big shootout at Fenway, and being a Sox fan, and getting access because they had not done well that year, and so the season was over. But to be able to go through Fenway into places where people, the public are not.
Where'd
normally.
You go?
I went through the whole back. I went everywhere in there and got to go out and put my hand on the field. It was an incredible experience. And that sequence took about a week to shoot. And we shot so many rounds that they ran out of ammunition that they were having. It was like doing a Michael Bay movie, right? We're out of ammunition. Well, I don't care where you get it, but I want it now. And all of a sudden, they were like airdropping crates of, blanks into Fenway Park.
So you're in between, scenes. You're shooting scenes, and you're behind a monster. Is that what you're saying? Like you're going behind the green monster. You're going inside. Did you see?
Well, it was one of those kind of slightly guided tours. It wasn't like they just opened the doors and said, "Here's the keys." And we actually did the first table read once the cast was assembled. Was in one of the, I believe it was the CEO's or owner's box. We did the first table read.
In the box at Fenway Park?
Yeah, which was really cool.
Of the film?
Yeah.
Like the whole cast is together, Ham's there, you're there?
Everybody's there. Blake Lively, Rebecca Hall, Ben Renner.
Yeah.
Wow. The whole gang. Pete Postlethwaite.
And the field's behind you?
The field's behind us.
Whoa.
And even at that point, they were aware that we were shooting it. So they already had to set up barricades to block off, to keep the paparazzi back. And they followed us around. TMZ, I mean, they were everywhere. Tom Cruise was shooting a thing with like Cameron Diaz at the same time. But they would just follow us around. I'd be walking down Newbury Street to go to the comic book store with my kids, and these guys would jump out with the cameras and start asking me questions. And you know, for me, I don't care. But when I'm with my kids,
Sure, yeah.
you know,
Yeah,
I never pulled a Sean Penn. Nobody got hurt, but there were a couple of moments where. And my kids, who were, you know, they were little, so they thought it was kind of cool. Like, oh, we're on TV, and I went, yeah, but you don't want to talk to these guys. But that was a lot of fun to shoot that film.
Man, at Fenway Park, you're a Red Sox fan? I'm wondering if, you know, Affleck wrote the movie just specifically to get Fenway Park in there.
Probably.
That's what we call a flex.
And you go, you know, you go anywhere. Because I had done Gone Baby Gone, and that film had come out, and I looked very different, and it was a completely different dialect.
Yeah.
But it's just like when you shoot something in New York, you know, they're proprietary. You know, I mean, and I'd have guys shouting at me, you know, from cars like, Lionel, what are you doing? Doing a whole different movie, but you know.
Oh man, I could go on and on. Come back anytime, brother. Bosch's Legacy, the final episodes of the third and final season, airing Thursday this week on Prime Video, which of course means you could see it right here on the Roku portal. Love having you.
Thanks for having me, man. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you. Right back at you. At Titus Welliver Official on Instagram as well. Check out Bosch Legacy, the final season, coming out this Thursday. Catch the Rich Eisen Show live, weekdays from 12 to 3 p.m. Eastern on Roku Sports Channel in the U.S.